We have to form a generation of warriors for Christ who have the souls, as it were, of monks and the courage of knights. You know, you look back in history of the church and you see when the barbarians were invading what is now Western Europe, and the Pope was seeking in vain the help of the emperor now in Constantinople, far away, and receiving no word or acknowledgement or even a word of encouragement, that the Pope sent those he could, and he didn't have armies to send, he sent monks. Today is the feast day of St. Augustine of Canterbury, one of these Benedictine monks who, with a troop of 40 actual monks living the monastic life, were sent to the Angles. Now we call them Englishmen, right? The Angles. He was sent by Pope St. Gregory the Great, Gregory the First, on this mission to the Angles because he had seen the young tribesmen of the Angles now captured and put on the block and being sold as slaves in the Roman Forum. He said, we have to send missionaries to them. And he did. These missionaries were responsible for the conversion of these tribes. Not just the Angles, but so many of the other barbarian tribes too. The weaponry they carried, the cross. That's what they carried. And they carried something else too. They carried with them the rule of St. Benedict. St. Benedict, in the early 500s or so, actually composed a rule of life. And it is actually the model for constitutional government, in the sense that he composed a rule for monastic life, living in a community, living in a society. And there are those constitutional scholars who believe that constitutional government actually took its rise from that monastic rule of St. Benedict, showing how we must live in community, especially as Christians. Right? They carried that with them. They carried that pattern of life wherever they went, the monks. And they showed the barbarians how to live in community, and not just to be feral tribes wandering and plundering, but to actually build homes, homesteads, farms, and live what we know as civilization. This was the influence of the monks, the rule of St. Benedict, and the faith that inspired it. So those monks then became the great scholars. And in their monasteries, they opened the schools. And the schools of what were barbarian chieftains, now converted to the faith, settled as kings, sent their offspring to these schools so that it would be educated. And Charlemagne, as a prime example of this, son of Pepin, son of Charles Martel, the Carolingians, as we call it, successors to the Merovingians, who had been a barbaric tribe. And they converted to the faith. And finally, in a certain number of generations afterward, here's Charlemagne sending for Alcuin, setting up these schools, making it an important priority of his reign for an educated people, to be educated in the monastic schools. So the monks who were the missionaries now became the educators. And the foundation of the universities was laid, because out of those monastic schools came the colleges. Out of the colleges were formed the universities, University of Paris, Padua, Bologna, and so on. They took their rise from the monastic schools. So the monks went from becoming the missionaries to the barbarians to becoming their educators. And then, lo and behold, in the time of the Middle Ages and the endless Muslim aggression against Christianity, the monks then became the warriors and formed the military orders to fight the battles for the church, to keep in check Muslim aggression, which had not been checked for 400 years. And finally, these same, as it were, monks had the spirit of missionaries, they had the spirit of the scholars, and they have the spirit of the warriors too. You know what? We need all of that. We need all of that today. Our men need to be like those monk missionaries, those monk scholars, and those monk warriors. They need to learn from the example of these men. So they should learn the history of them and teach it to their children and inspire them with a desire to follow their example. So we should pray. St. Augustine of Canterbury, pray for us today.
Yes, absolutely.